mistake upon mistake. That
All right, welcome everybody. I was not planning to stream today, but it looks like we are indeed going to war. And as you can see, I've got my contacts out. I've got my gym shirt on. This was not, we had a sense that this was coming. I didn't think it would necessarily be tonight. But it appears that this is getting going. Iran has hit a U.S. base with missiles. There is a lot to discuss, and we're going to be here doing it. Let's start with the news. There has been a missile attack on U.S. bases in Iraq. This is being announced as revenge for the killing of the Iranian Quds leader Qasem Soleimani. Let's look at the latest news. This is an article from the Jerusalem Post updated just 15 minutes ago. Iran launched more than a dozen ballistic missiles and targeted U.S. bases in Iraq on Tuesday night in retaliation for the killing of Qasem Soleimani last week. The Pentagon says the missiles were launched from Iran. The Pentagon confirmed that more than a dozen ballistic missiles had been fired at a number of U.S. military bases in Iraq, including the Al-Assad Air Base, which hosts both Iraqi and U.S. soldiers. U.S. officials confirmed that a missile attack had taken place and said that President Donald Trump was being briefed on the situation. That's the guy we want in charge, right? The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps confirmed it carried out the missile attack against U.S. forces as part of an operation named Martyr Soleimani. This is already horrible. And said in a statement that it was the first step of their retaliation for the killing of the Quds Force commander on Friday. The IRGC statement claimed that dozens of missiles had been fired at Al-Assad Air Base. Iranian media reported that a second wave of missiles was being fired at U.S. targets in Iraq after the initial attack. Quote from White House spokeswoman Stephanie Grisham, "We are aware of the reports of attacks on U.S. facilities in Iraq. The president has been briefed and is monitoring the situation closely and consulting with his national security team." House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was briefed on the attack during a meeting with Democrats on Tuesday, according to CNN Rep. Debbie Dingell, stated that Pelosi told members of the meeting pray. It's happening. Folks saying that Trump may be going live soon. Let's keep me posted on where that may happen, because of course we are going to want to carry that. We have live ABC News coverage that is taking place here. This is breaking news, and this is so. Trump is not going live. CNN confirms. Okay, Trump will not be addressing tonight. Maybe that is good news, as people are saying. I am starting. I remember not long after I moved to the United States, that the first Iraq War took place. And I remember watching it on television, and I remember the rockets, and I remember it all under George H.W. Bush. And then when I was in high school, I remember similar things with the second war in Iraq. And I remember shock and awe, and it being reported almost gleefully in some cases by corporate media, like a sporting event in a sense. And it seems as though things are going very, very much in the same direction. Questions already about, are there deaths from the bombings? We don't know yet. Certainly there are going to be. This is going to lead to some deaths if it continues to escalate. Let's look at this article from the Associated Press and see if it gives us any new information. Iran struck back, we know that. 2 Iraqi bases housing U.S. troops and warning the U.S. Not to retaliate. Iran only initially acknowledged targeting 1 base, no immediate word on injuries. We already know Iranian state TV says this is revenge for the killing of Qasem Soleimani. The Iran Revolutionary Guard is warning about retaliation. We are warning all American allies who gave their bases to its terrorist army that any territory that is the starting point of aggressive acts against Iran will be targeted. We already talked about Martyr Soleimani. A spokesperson for the Norwegian Armed Forces told AP in a phone interview that about 70 Norwegian troops were on the airbase, no injuries reported thus far. This is going to get extremely ugly. And remember that we heard from, was it Mike Pompeo, that this is all just noise? Well, when the deaths start, we'll see if they can still call it just noise. We have been told that this is going to be very simple. We were told that this was going to be easily taken care of by alpha male Donald Trump, and it is going to be the opposite of all of these things. And it's just depressing. I mean, what else is there to say? This is potentially the start of another. The United States has a long history of fighting politically motivated wars. There's a very long list of them. Let's look at the Department of Defense Twitter, as people are suggesting while we talk about this. Department of Defense. Okay, let's see what the Department of Defense is saying here. Let's start at the beginning. So it's a 4-tweet series. Let's take a look at it. This is I'm struggling to keep up with this as much as everybody is. So let's take a look at everything together. Department of Defense has sent a 4-tweet series. The following statement is attributed to Chief Spox, Chief Pentagon spokesman. At approximately 5:30 Eastern on January 7th, Iran launched at least a dozen ballistic missiles against U.S. military and coalition forces in Iraq. It is clear that these missiles were launched from Iran and targeted at least 2 Iraqi military bases hosting U.S. military and coalition personnel at Al-Assad and Erbil. We are working on initial battle damage assessments. This is starting to look more and more like a war. It's sounding more like a war. In recent days and in response to Iranian threats and actions, the Department of Defense has taken all appropriate measures to safeguard our personnel and partners. These bases have been on high alert due to indications that the Iranian regime planned to attack our forces and interests in the region. As we evaluate the situation and our response, we will take all necessary measures to protect and defend U.S. personnel, partners, and allies in the region. Due to the dynamic nature of the situation, we will continue to provide updates as they become available. The latest from ABC News, still nothing. We are going to keep an eye on this Twitter account for sure, and this is looking extraordinarily ugly. Let me see. I had a few other updated articles that I wanted to... So there is another, let me see if this is the same article. It seems to be, I see. The Jerusalem Post has updated this. Let's refresh. Let's take a look at this video and see what's going on. Feels like 2003 all over again. This is because Trump is impeached, guys. This is the worst of the worst of politically motivated warfare. I'm starting to get some messages via Super Chat over on YouTube, as well as on Twitch. Let's start looking at what folks are sending in. Awesome Gaming says Dow Jones futures are down 360. I don't actually see that. 17 minutes ago, maybe I see it's not being reflected live. Not that the stock market is the main thing here, but the reason this is interesting is that so far, even with the killing of Soleimani, you didn't see the markets crash, which was a sign that it wasn't yet necessarily escalating. Now we see U.S. stock futures slumped along with Asian equities. Futures on the S&P 500 dropped more than 1%. 1% on the Dow is close to 300, right? Yeah, so that makes sense. Futures declined 1.3% as of 10:20 a.m. in Tokyo. Tomorrow is going to be brutal. I mean, listen, that is so secondary at this point, but it is absolutely a sign that this is going to get increasingly ugly. Trendy as Dabbers says, is it a good time to golf or vacation at a Trump business? I would obviously be staying away from those anyway, but I would say no. Ryan Henry Dean says via Super Chat, if Trump says no more attacks on the U.S. and stops now, I actually think his strategy might work. Iran would not do more. They got their revenge. We avoid war, but Trump still looks strong, maybe. Trump is not going to believe himself to be strong if the last word is Iran bombing 2 of our bases. I mean, that's listen, we know Trump, guys. If the last word is they bomb 2 of our bases, Donald Trump is not going to be satisfied by that. No doubt about it. I can't believe we have to do this at this serious time, but I do have to ban a few people because the anti-Semitism is running rampant. Listen, this is not about me being Jewish, guys. I hate to break it to you. Moderators in the chat, please do help me. Let's see here. I am going to do my best to keep up with banning all this stuff. Okay. People are asking about phone calls. I don't know. Maybe we will do phone calls. I have no idea what is going to happen tonight. We are keeping an eye on the Department of Defense, which has been sending a number of tweets. I will thank members. I mean, listen, I don't know how long this is going to be. If you want to support what we're doing, this may be an all-night stream. I will thank folks, and I want to thank Michael Batista, who has signed up at joinpacman.com. Thanks, Michael. Very much appreciate that. Let me see the questions people have over on Twitch. L1491 subscribed and says, thanks for keeping us in the know. My pleasure. Mio Fafard subscribed with Prime. Moondog22 subscribed with Prime. Miltonic subscribed with Prime. Thanks very much. Lisa MW says via Super Chat on YouTube, thanks for hopping on, glasses and all, to hang out and let us know what's going on. I appreciate how you do that whenever stuff is going on. Yeah, this may be a very, very long night. We genuinely don't know what to expect. And let me see if I can pull up a Google News feed and we can see what else is coming in. If people have specific bits of news we should be looking at, I'm glad to do it. Things are happening so quickly that it is very, very difficult to keep up. But there is a lot going on, and listen, if by tomorrow morning we were committed to more of an escalation militarily with Iran, I would not be at all surprised. If a few days go by without much else happening, that would also not be a huge shock. It's very unpredictable what it is that we are going to see happen here. Let's take a listen to a little bit of ABC's coverage and see what's going on.
U.S. troops are headed to the Middle East as part of this escalating crisis with Iran. And what more do we know about U.S. presence at that base and whether or not there had been any movement beforehand based on these threats from Iran that there would be retaliation?
Yeah, that's right, David. We believe that the 3,500 extra troops were flown into the region. This is primarily into Kuwait to try and bolster U.S. defensive positions. But you're right, Ain Assad is one of the key bases. In fact, when the president ordered the withdrawal of some troops from Syria, Ain Assad was one of the places where some of those troops went. So there are a significant number of them. This is a key air base in western Iraq. As you say, the Iranians have been very clear that they've targeted it. U.S. officials have confirmed to ABC News that an airbase or that a base has come under attack. They also said that Erbil, where we are in northern Iraq.
Listen, this has every indication that it is about to get absolutely and completely insane. We have, if you're just joining us, breaking news: there have been ballistic missiles fired from inside Iran at least two bases, and now it's starting to seem as though maybe a third base in Iraq maybe has been attacked. We're trying to keep up with the information as best we can. Let me thank some other people and answer some questions. Somebody says via Super Chat, this is the best time for Trump fans to join the army. Put your money where your mouth is. I mean, listen, That's not a crazy reaction to have, right? If there are people who genuinely think this is a good idea, go and sign up the way people did after 9/11. Waiting to Fade says, what books would you recommend to learn more about the Iraq War? I'm actually not sure. I don't have any Iraq War books in mind. Andy Rue says, what's your take on the relationship between Iran, Russia, and China in terms of the response by Iran? Going to address that on the program tomorrow. I'm still sort of hammering out my thoughts on that, and that is there are a number of complexities there to consider. Thanks to Cody Crossman for signing up at joinpacman.com, as well as Danielle Coleman and Jason Terry. I really appreciate everybody's support. As you can probably tell, I'm in gym clothes and have taken my contacts out for the day and was getting ready to have a very early evening. And we may be going to war here. So we are covering what's going on. I do want to hear from you. We're live on YouTube. We are live on Twitch. Let me thank Atonium on Twitch, as well as Chef Euro and Nexus1111 for signing up with Twitch Prime, as well as Jethro Parsons. It is what must be 8 hours later, right? So it must be about nearly 5 a.m. Let me see. Current time in Baghdad. This is 4:55 a.m. This is, when I think back to the first Iraq War, when I was like 8 years old, when I think back to the second Iraq War, this is typically the time where it gets going, where we learn about it. It's often between 3 and 5 a.m., the darkest point of the night, when you start to see the hostilities, and they become very late nights. And this is this for me is feeling once again like one of those. I'm seeing messages from folks saying that Iran is starting another round of attacks. I'm not seeing any other information. Let's see if the Jerusalem Post, which has been keeping us updated, this has been updated again. Let's see if there's any additional information that would be relevant. Iranian media reported a second wave of missiles, but I think that is not new. The stock market information has been updated. Oil prices rose. This is the exact predictable trajectory that we would be anticipating here, and we will see if Google News updates here as well. The latest that we are seeing is from CNN 14 minutes ago. Let's take a look. Still two bases are the reports. Yeah, this is really, we've got to look at Hillary Clinton's emails. I mean, listen, if we don't figure out what happened with those emails, it's obviously that's insane. Obviously, that is absolutely and completely insane. Let me read a few more super chats because I do see them coming in. Donkey Gamer says, this was predictable, but with Trump, we really don't know if it's stoppable. That is the fear. That is the fear from a lot of people. Ryan Henry Dean says, I feel Trump could stop and look strong. No U.S. casualties yet. He could say that the response from Iran was weak and that he doesn't want war. It would be a political win. He would appear wise. People that are saying this could be it. So here's the idea. When we're trying to think about how much this could escalate, there's the idea that Trump could say, we got Soleimani. They didn't kill anybody and just sent some missiles at some bombs. Trump can be the big person and just say we're not going to go any further. Does that match what we know about Trump's personality? No. There is no way in my mind that I envision that is what is going to go on, because Trump temperamentally could not possibly tolerate that. So I can't imagine that that's what we're going to see. Drew Was Me sends a $50 super chat. Thanks for putting up with the irrelevant comments. Glasses, Jewish, gay, etc. I don't care. You have a great, honest, independent news voice. Thanks. I am Jewish. I'm not gay. I do wear glasses or contacts. When I'm on the show, I'm typically wearing contacts. Yeah, listen, this is starting to feel like one of those moments where we will all remember where we were and what we were doing when we found out that war with Iran started. And I hope that that's not the case, but it is increasingly looking like that, and that is extremely scary. I'm seeing folks say that there has been an updated, that Newsweek has news about this. Okay, let's take a look at the Newsweek Newsweek Twitter and see what is the latest there. Okay, Ace of Spades. Jeez. Here we go. Senior Defense Department official tells Newsweek 0 casualties at the moment. News came in at 8:28 p.m. Eastern time. Okay, so that's 30-minute old news. Would they even, the first responder says, I wouldn't trust anyone from this administration. I don't know that I believe anything that they say at this point in time. And it may not, there may be casualties, there may not. It's going to take a while for us to figure that out. Let me say thank you to Duggar Jones. Duggar Jones just signed up at joinpacman.com and is new member number 5 of the evening. I really appreciate everybody's support. This was an impromptu stream. It may go a while depending on the interest level and what news breaks. ABC News for now, everybody's trying to figure out what's going on. They are just replaying Martha Raditz's interview with the Iranian FM. Is that finance minister? Foreign minister, which took place shortly before the Iran strike. CNN has the 22p font now. Let's see what's happening on... Iran attacks Iraqi bases housing American troops. Pentagon says Iran launched more than a dozen ballistic missiles. So you have to... There's a lot of repeat stuff. We know it was about a dozen missiles and 2 bases so far. And we're waiting to see what other information comes forward. Reuters has a new video. Can someone tell me if can I find it on the Reuters Twitter? Do I need to go on Reuters YouTube? Let's look at Reuters. Live blog. Oh, this may be useful to us. Yes. Explosions as rockets land at what is believed to be Ain al-Assad Air Base. Iran press via Reuters. Okay, let's take a look at the video. Listen, does anybody in the chat support this? I mean, I'm curious. This seems so obviously misguided. This seems so obviously politically motivated. This seems so obviously Donald Trump fighting political battles, anti-impeachment. Is there anyone watching on either Twitch or YouTube that likes what is going on and that says, I want this. Let's go. Let's go. Let's get it. Let's get Iran. Wow. Very little. I mean, a couple people, and it looks like maybe they're kidding. Only idiots and trolls want this. It's not a joke. I mean, I'm genuinely curious whether there are people who believe that this is a worthwhile battle to be fighting. We have been fighting Iran for decades. That's true. Wow. Okay. Overwhelming response from people in the chat. Trendy as Dabbers says via super chat, it is so ironic that Obama taunted Trump at the press corps dinner over the birther issue, made the deal with Iran. Now Trump has undone the deal in response to the troll. It's as if it's Obama's fault. Not sure I understand you, Trendy. This is Agel says, don't trust the tweet saying no casualties. This is standard media blackout response immediately following attacks. We did the same thing when it was Iraq. Very good point. That's a very good point. David Soul says maybe the military needs to set up recruitment tables at Trump rallies going forward. Listen, even my chat, which very often has folks from the right, nobody is saying that this is a good idea. Let's see if we have anything tweeted from Donald Trump. Still nothing. His last tweet is still from 6 hours ago. Joseph Vanskoy says, Alia iacta est. We have unfortunately reached the point of no return. Mark my words, this will backfire in November. It seems sort of inappropriate when we may be about to start seeing casualties in this pointless political war meant to distract from Donald Trump's impeachment. It seems something seems wrong with starting to talk about the political implications. But the question of whether this will backfire in November is a perfectly reasonable one to be asking, and I don't know the answer. F. Major's biggest fan says, I don't support anything that could lead to war. Why does Trump choose war over peace? He has to know that war may kill innocent people. I hope I'll stay safe. You know, I was texting with my little sister today, and she was born after the Iraq War, the second Iraq War started. And she was saying, do you think we could be bombed here in the United States? And my answer was, I don't think so. I don't think that that would happen. But the fact that we can comfortably or relatively comfortably say that suggests a huge level of privilege, in the sense that Donald Trump can play this like a video game for political purposes, because it is so unlikely that the war would ever come to the U.S. for geographical reasons, for reasons of political power, and for all of the other reasons that many of you know. Killer of Cereal says some individuals investing in cryptocurrency might be in support of the war. I'm actually curious. I'm going to look at my Coinbase account. Has crypto spiked? Wow. Cryptocurrency has gone crazy in the last few hours. That is actually an extraordinarily interesting side story to this. Wow, I'm amazed at what we are seeing here. But in the last, what was it? I guess since in the last few hours, cryptocurrency has really popped, and that. I don't know why. I guess the reason that would be is concerns about economies, Western economies, and the currencies that are connected to those economies. And in the same way that Dow futures are down hundreds of points, maybe people are seeing crypto as some kind of safe haven or something like that. I don't know. Edgar Torres says this wouldn't be happening without the Iraq War. Anyone who voted for it should be immediately disqualified. Joseph Orlando says it's a terrible idea, but what do you think if people died on our side? Do we just let that go? That's not even really the question to be had right now. That's not the immediate the immediate question is, what is the next step here? Ryan Nowicki, how do you think it will affect the U.S. media if and when our allies, as well as Iran and others, tell us to get out of the Middle East and they abandon us? Well, the corporate media that basically casually sort of cheerleads American military intervention with very little critical analysis potentially will end up between a rock and a hard place if that takes place. Ali Reza Mirgasemi says Putin had traveled to Syria to meet Assad hours before the attack, then went to Turkey to meet Erdogan in an unplanned manner. What is your idea on that? First I'm hearing of it, and I don't know anything about it yet. Let me say thanks to a few other new members. Alan Skarupa has signed up at joinpacman.com. Joe Gersak has signed up at joinpacman.com. Lori Hamilton and Kevin Westerman have also signed up at joinpacman.com. Thanks so much. That is 9 new members this evening. I don't know how long we are going to be streaming, but there is a lot happening, and we are all just here together trying to figure out what it is that is going on. Let me say thanks to some folks over on Twitch. I don't want to forget about you guys. I want to see what's on your mind. Thanks to After Dark for the subscription, Scrivnavo, Tanqueray, Charles SC4, Deflapriken, and Michigan Mike. Thanks to all of you guys. If you have any questions for me, feel free to include them with your Twitch Prime message. A lot of YouTube super chats coming in, and I will keep going through them as we await more information here about what is taking place. If you're just joining us, this may be the beginning of the United States-Iran war. Sean Geis says, an Iranian on Tom Hartman's show said Iran was so close to overthrowing the Ayatollah. They are very unpopular, yet this united them. Such backfire. I've been actually talking to some Iranian friends about that, and they agree completely. Thanks to Stephen Lindsay Satterfield for the super chat. Terry James says the only silver lining is it may hurt Trump in November. I don't know the answer to that, because it is a very common meme in American politics to say we don't want to change horses midstream when we are in the middle of a military conflict. And I would not consider it a foregone conclusion that this hurts Trump in November. I wish we could. Happensmaker says, hey ho, out of Switzerland, just started my night shift pause. Pretty crazy, honestly, to kind of have a first row seat on those information due to my night shift. But still, thank you, David, for your efforts. Glad to be doing this for everybody, although it is absolutely sickening that this is going on. Ryan Henry Dean says, I would support this if it stopped now. I agree with deterrence, and if it was any other president, I might trust the Soleimani intelligence. A user whose name is in Cyrillic sends, I believe, 100, is it Russian rubles, saying, what's wrong with humanity? My question as well. Knowledge Gizmo says, the sad thing is by the time countless U.S. lives are lost, it won't even matter why a war started. Trump and his warmongers are counting on that. It reminds me of the book The Forever War by Joe Haldeman, one of my favorite sci-fi authors. Joe Haldeman's Forever War was sort of an analogy to Vietnam. It is one of my favorite sort of, it's not really a space opera, but it sort of is. It's one of my favorite space opera type books. And one of the things about that book is because of the time travel component and something called time dilation, the details don't matter. But the point is, there are people who are fighting the war who will never make it back because of the time it takes to travel. I'm explaining this so terribly. The point is, everybody, because of time travel, forgets why the war even started, what it would mean to win it, and what the battle lines are. That's the point. And it is very much reminiscent of what we are talking about here, as Knowledge Gizmo points out. Winter Solstice says, David, is there any way we can skip paying taxes? I feel horrible that almost 60% of my tax money goes to war. No more wars. So listen, this is actually an interesting moment to bring this up. I want to talk about strategic defaults and as a protest tactic, because it's really important. Thanks to Tia Maria Smith for signing up at joinpacman.com and Vincent Cardness. I really appreciate you guys signing up. 11 people have signed up. So here's the deal. Let's see how to couch this. I've talked before about protest activism tactics that are fine, but they're not really going to achieve the change that we want, right? So like signing petitions online, great, do it. Calling your members of Congress, absolutely do it. But if we really want to achieve systemic change in this country, we likely are going to need truly, people, strategic call-outs from work to cripple industry, mass rallies at urban centers, strategic defaults to cripple the financial system. And this is one where so the way that would work is if there was a coordinated effort for everybody to stop paying their mortgages, right? Within a month, you would cripple the financial industries. You would in many ways cripple government. And it would be extraordinarily impactful. But the whole point of the system is to throw people enough of a bone that they don't do that, but to also prevent them from having a good enough situation where they can afford to go and do that type of activism. Remember that most people pay taxes. So like I'm self-employed. I'm on a salary, but I run the business. So I kind of choose when to pay my taxes. I pay what are called estimated taxes. Most people are paying their taxes through their employers. So it would really be up to the employer to say, we are going to stop paying taxes. We're going to stop sending in tax money. And of course, if everybody does it, the government would be completely overwhelmed and crippled. And people are pointing out the bank can just print money. If you print money to this degree, if all tax revenue stops, that's very different than saying we're going to print a little bit of money to fund healthcare. We're talking about a completely different scale. Maybe that would be the type of activism that gets the military-industrial status quo to be rethought. Remember, that's a status quo which Democrats are not quite, but close to as complicit in as Republicans. Anyway, yeah, that's an issue I've talked about many times before, and we will likely talk about it again. Let me see what other super chats are coming in here. Joseph Vanskoy says, war with Iran will mean thousands of Americans dead, and as always, the poor will fight it and the rich will profit from it. That's the way it works. That is literally the American way. No question about it. Let's do a check of what's going on. We'll see if there are any Google News updates here. Still 2 bases reportedly targeted. Let's take a look at whether Donald Trump has sent out any more tweets today. No, he has not. Let's look at the Department of Defense Twitter. Oh, I misspelled it. Department of Defense. There we go. See if they have any updates. None as of yet. And then let's check Reuters to see if they have anything new. They have this live blog. Okay, so the last update was 8:10 p.m. Let's see if there's anything new. We're all trying to figure out what's going on. Just this video. And then let's see if CNN has any updates as well. Nothing new as of yet. Reports are that Donald Trump will not be speaking tonight. People in the chat can confirm whether that is or is not the case. Let me say thanks to a few other folks who are supporting the stream on Twitch. Thanks to Cleric Storm for subscribing with Twitch Prime. Alluring Lord says, what are the chances of this going further than just US and Iran with China and Russia allied with Iran? The chances are non-zero, and I'm going to address that tomorrow for sure. Comstock Rocker says with their Twitch Prime sub, is there a chance Congress will rein this in? I wish I could say yes, but I think the answer is no. I think that the answer is probably no on that, unfortunately. Let me say thanks to Trevor Delker for signing up at joinpacman.com and Ryan Harrison, Patrick DePass as well. Really appreciate the support. Let's maybe okay, the super chats are coming in fast and furious, but I do want to let's just listen a little bit. This is all earlier, so we're not actually seeing anything live. Is there a better actual live stream that we could pick up here? I checked to see if PBS went live, but they didn't. I'm glad to switch to maybe a more updated live stream, so to speak, because this does not seem to be giving us what we want. CBSN. Let's see what they've got going on. Oh, okay. Yeah, let's take a look at that. See what they're reporting at this point.
Firmly with Iran and not one of its proxies, not one of its militias, and not one of its allies in Syria. Now, if we just kind of go back a little bit to the...
By the way, it's sort of disgusting that longtime Fox News flunky Catherine Herridge is the one giving us the news on this. I'd much rather hear it from somebody else. But regardless, let's see what they are reporting.
He was a horrible terrorist. He was someone who was responsible, kind of pioneered the idea of IED attacks and suicide attacks against our military personnel in Iraq. And just as an anecdote for you and folks at home, one of my contacts was explaining to me that there was a lot of sort of sweet irony in the fact that General Soleimani was killed on that route coming out of Baghdad.
Sweet irony. How disgusting. Give me a break. Okay. Dave Rubin has showed up in the chat and wants to know via Super Chat, do you believe that this Iran thing is a bigger deal than when Kalamazoo College allowed transgender wrestling? That is an extraordinarily prescient question, because as huge as this is, transgender wrestling is just an issue of foremost importance. Absolutely, Dave Rubin. Thank you for the super chat and the $5. I appreciate that. Joe Rader says via super chat, I read on Twitter that Iran contacted the U.S. via proxies to warn that they would need to bomb bases to save face for the assassination response, so U.S. personnel were evacuated. Very well may be, Joe. Please send a source if you have that. Ave Caesar 2112 says, thanks for ripping me out of Jordan Peterson's sphere of influence. My pleasure, my friend. I'm glad to be of service, of course. Thanks to Terry Babbins for subscribing with Twitch Prime as well. If you are just joining us, we have seen a response, a military response from Iran bombing 2 U.S. bases in Iraq. We have not heard anything from Donald Trump on Twitter for 7 hours, and I will refresh to confirm that. And indeed, that remains the case. We are watching to see what happens next. This is extraordinarily scary. This reminds me of similar, it feels like it must have been 9:10 p.m. as well back in 2003 when it was announced that George W. Bush started the extraordinarily misguided, arguably illegal, and completely disgusting war in Iraq. And it is feeling much the same with an even more erratic person. And remember that this is because of impeachment. This is because Donald Trump is desperate to get himself reelected. And whether it will work or not, I don't know. Often military conflicts are good for reelection. But this is the Trump era, and I'm sort of struggling for words because this is so extraordinarily disturbing. Christian Burdiel Fernandez says, do you think Trump will be remembered like Bush on the Iraq War as a failure and disaster? I hope that it is worse. I hope that it is worse. Simon Paul says that the White House has confirmed Donald Trump will not be communicating with the people tonight. Well, that seems to cover some kind of live address, but at any time he may be tweeting. We don't know. Let's take a listen to the coverage here. This is a video from earlier.
That the United States felt the ball was in Iran's court, to use a cliche, and they were going to be one of the main decision makers over how things would transpire over the next few days. But one of my contacts who works within the White House cautioned this evening that the Iranians are extremely smart and they're extremely strategic, and they're also extremely patient. You know, there's a phrase in that part of the world that we have watches, but they have time, right? You know, so they're extremely patient. I don't want to make light of that, but they're very smart that way. And my contact sense was that significant retaliation by the Iranians might not come until some future date. It might not be immediate.
And very interesting. Well, if that statement by Secretary Esper was meant to be an olive branch of sorts, it was certainly not taken as that by the Iranians.
The gist that I'm getting is that the non-Trump forces that be at the Pentagon are trying to prevent an escalation. And if indeed the strategy from Iran will be to wait before anything bigger is done to see if Donald Trump further escalates, then maybe there is a chance that Donald Trump will be talked out of further escalation by people like Mark Esper. It's a question mark, and one way or another, this is going to last some time politically. The question of whether this becomes an extended military conflict remains to be seen. Loco Nico says via Super Chat on YouTube, oil taints everything in that region and soaks it in blood. People have been dying for oil in the Gulf for more than a century now. Tisha T says, is it true that Raytheon and oil stocks went up since last week? It is true. Okay, Joe Rader now is sending me a link to a tweet. Now, full warning, I don't know for sure how much this can be trusted. This is being repeated by a lot of Middle East journalists. Tehran told Washington, D.C. through proxies that it will bomb U.S. bases in Iraq to save face and claim it is a response for killing Soleimani. That's why the USA emptied its bases hours before the attacks. 0 casualties. That may well be. And hopefully we will ultimately find out more about that. V says, just a reminder, if there is a draft, you can file as a conscientious objector to avoid being drafted. Probably won't be one, but just in case. And Safari J says, we nation build like China does communism, meaning in name only. Shouldn't we have left massive troops in Iraq to rebuild and stabilize? We had massive troops in Iraq for a very long time. John McLean says Trump manipulating his followers to believing Hillary was a war hawk while he wasn't. Now he bombs Iran 3 years later and his supporters go along with it. It is an amazing accomplishment. It has been gaslighting for years at this point. It is should not come as a surprise to anybody that Donald Trump has done not only the opposite of what he said he would do, but the thing he said Hillary Clinton would do. If you're just joining us, we are all together trying to figure out whether we are going to war with Iran tonight. As you may know, Donald Trump ordered the assassination of the Iranian Quds leader Qasem Soleimani. In response, Iran has bombed 2 U.S. bases in Iraq. This may be the start of a bigger escalation and the start of the Iran war, as it may one day come to be known. This may be merely Iran doing something in order to save face, as some are claiming, with no further plans for escalation. We have not seen any tweets from Donald Trump for 7 hours. The White House has said that Donald Trump will not be addressing the nation tonight in any case. But we may, of course, at any point hear from him via Twitter. We are also following a live blog from Reuters, and I am not seeing anything. Oh, okay, this one's pinned. So we actually have an update from 6 minutes ago. Footage broadcast on Iranian TV shows a number of missiles fired into the sky, as well as explosions from missiles believed to be landing at Ain al-Assad Air Base in Iraq, which hosts U.S. forces. Let's take a look. All right, I think we get a sense of that. Report from a few minutes prior. We know that markets are reacting in a concerned way to what is going on. A picture of the White House after the attacks. FAA to prohibit U.S. civil operators from airspace over Iraq, Iran, Persian Gulf, and the Gulf of Oman. I actually want to take a look at that. Let me see if I can find Flight Radar 24. I would be interested in looking at that. Let me see if I can find a new window here. I'm curious to see what's going on with routing in the Middle East right now. Let's see what we can find. And so let me be able to read that again. So I'm actually interested in that. Wait a second, where was it? 8:55. Over Iraq, Iran, the Persian Gulf, and the Gulf of Oman. Yeah, so nothing particularly notable happening yet, it seems like, with air traffic in terms of large disruptions. But all of the normal things that we see and expect in these situations seem to be happening. Let's take a look. This seems like an actual live report now.
And that these 2 missiles landed north of the U.S. consulate, away from the U.S. military presence here. We haven't heard of any casualties. We had a team that went by the consulate to see if there was any action there. It seemed fairly calm from what we could see. So right now, there's just a lot of anticipation of, is this over, or is there going to be another round that's going to be incoming? Right now, really, no one knows.
Had security there been beefed up? Were these attacks anticipated at all?
You know, we've heard statements from the Iranian government. We heard them from Shiite militias here in Iraq that they are going to retaliate. They're going to retaliate with vengeance. Americans were anticipating this. But what's interesting is a few days ago, we heard from one of the Iraqi militias, Kataib Hezbollah, that warned Iraqi soldiers around these bases to stay a kilometer away, so a little over a mile away from the U.S. military presence.
So most of this we already know. Please make sure, if you're watching on YouTube, as nearly 10,000 of you are, to hit that subscribe button. It's a quick, easy, free thing you can do just to support the streams, and I really appreciate folks joining me on what is potentially a historic and disgustingly horrible evening. If you are over on Twitch, please consider yourself invited to renew or start a Twitch Prime subscription to the David Pakman Show Twitch channel. I appreciate everybody who's signed up so far, including most recently Terry Babbins, who subscribed with Twitch Prime. If you have questions or comments on YouTube, please send them in via Super Chat, and I will continue answering. As far as moderators, we have like 12 moderators on Twitch and 12 moderators on YouTube. I don't know how many of you guys are here, but please, there is a lot of anti-Semitism, some directed against me. There is a lot of crazy BS happening in the chat. So help me out. Whoever can help me out. If we have moderators on either, please do. I would appreciate that very much. Shane Babka. Babka, of course, one of my 3 favorite desserts, along with flan. Actually, I have I have a lot of favorite desserts, but Babka is up there. Shane Babka says, now Trump is going to do what Republicans do best and cry victim. We're so effed. Just remember, the rich will cheer on any war, even a nuclear war, because they will survive it, while we, the poor, will not. There is an overclass, no question, that does very well, does very, very well in military conflict. A lot of people get very, very rich. Let me say thanks to some folks who just signed up at joinpakman.com. Kyle Beveridge is a new member. Will Collins is a new member. Taylor McLean, thank you so much. Will Collins getting 2 memberships. I don't know if Will actually meant to do that. But we'll count them both for now. If that was an error, we'll deal with that later, Will. But I appreciate your support very much at joinpakman.com. I missed a few other super chats. Mr. CBF21 says, will a war with Iran be worse than Vietnam? The propaganda that is possible today because of Fox News and all of these other right-wing media outlets is far more pervasive than anything that was around during the Vietnam era. So in that way, the disinformation campaigns will be absolutely malignant and virus-like in some way. So in some way, it will be extremely, it will be worse in terms of deaths. I mean, we don't even know if this is actually building to being a war or if this is going to be it. We just don't know. I have no idea. Okay, I'm getting notice that Nancy Pelosi tweeted. Let's see what is happening with Nancy Pelosi and see what she said. She tweeted 2 hours ago. Closely monitoring the situation following bombings targeting U.S. troops in Iraq, we must ensure the safety of our service members, including ending needless provocations from the administration and demanding that Iran cease its violence. America and world cannot afford war. Okay, that was a couple of hours ago, and I don't know whether we are going to hear from her again. Thanks to Twitch Scott F200 for subscribing with Twitch Prime. Thanks to Kayla Rin and Draylol, as well as Amber Roses for subscribing with Twitch Prime. Anthony Bologna, or Bologna. Jack17, thanks so much to all you guys, as well as Serrated Riot. Very, very much appreciate the support. Super chats on YouTube are coming in fast and furious, and why wouldn't they? With 8,600 people on the live stream. Okay, these are scrolling by. Andrew Dwyer says, have you read Management of Savagery by Max Blumenthal? What are your thoughts? It seems relevant. I have not read it. Could not comment. Daniel Rivera, what percentage of Americans do you think would oppose a U.S.-Iran war? My instinct is that it would be a very high percentage of Americans that would oppose an Iran war. Let's do this again. We did this about a half hour ago. Is there anybody watching this right now on either YouTube or Twitch that is in favor of going to war with Iran? Let me know in the chat on either. Last time there were like 2 people and it seemed like they were trolling. And I'll say more. If you are in favor of going to war with Iran, tell me why you are in favor of it. And if you say something like, let's kick their ass, I'm going to assume that you're trolling. So somebody, is there anybody who can give me a good reason for this? Only if we get our asses kicked, right? Yeah, it seems overwhelmingly the answer is no. I get that these are, very biased samples of my audience, but there's usually right-wingers watching my videos. Let's take a listen to this latest report from the White House.
His national security team, along with the vice president, but so far we have not heard from the president himself about these Iranian attacks, because on the one hand, of course, it would take longer than just a matter of hours for him to decide his next move with his team and then announce it.
Don't be so sure.
The country and the world. But on the other hand, they were anticipating this. Officials came out today and said they knew that Iran was probably going to retaliate in some way or another, and that the U.S. would be ready to respond appropriately. President Trump did say earlier today that if Iran does anything that they shouldn't be doing, they're going to be suffering the consequences, and very strongly. Of course, what exactly he means right now is the answer that everybody is waiting for, because as Democrats already point out on Capitol Hill, that will determine what happens next in Tehran, and whether this will continue to escalate and how serious it could become. But certainly already these consequences are potentially dire, and congressional leaders are publicly voicing their concerns about what this means. As for the president, again, we are closely monitoring his Twitter feed, because often that's how he announces dramatic foreign policy announcements, dramatic moves that he plans to make. Nothing at all, Tanya. So I think that's a good indication that they are very carefully calculating what happens next.
Absolutely. It is anytime the...
So we're getting into the point of the night now where they are just sort of like repeating the same 90-second video over and over again, because not much new is happening. I would not assume... The one thing I disagree with in that report is I would not assume that it's going to take Donald Trump a very long time to figure out what to do. He is the type of guy that will very quickly decide what to do and do something extremely erratic, and it will be terrible for everybody. Number Theory 3434 asks via Super Chat, does this mean World War III? We don't know yet. We hope not, but we will see. Liquid Ice 55 has subscribed for 4 months in a row with Twitch Prime and says, David, mess up your hair like last stream to complement the stressful situation. I can't do that, because the reason I did that last stream is I had not yet showered, and I have showered today, and thus I just can't do that. I'm unfortunately unable to oblige. Soda Boda subscribed for 2 months and says, if the United States does retaliate, what do you think the likelihood that Iran allies would join the fight? We will address that tomorrow, and I think it is certainly more than a non-zero chance. Anders Olofsson has subscribed with Twitch Prime. Isle Mo Kai has subscribed with Twitch Prime, as has Bladdy Meow. Very much appreciate the support. Tisha asks via Super Chat, is it true that Pelosi recently voted to give Trump an extra $80 billion for war? I don't know if the number was $80 billion, but she did. She did. Jordan Baldwin, why did Nancy Pelosi move the war powers vote to next week? Did not know that she did. A lot of people are saying to check out Ali Arouzi's tweets, so let's do that. Ali Arouzi. Let's take a look at what Ali Arouzi is tweeting. Okay, this is key right now. If America does not respond to these attacks, this may be over for now. If America attacks, it will escalate. Okay, yeah, I mean, that seems perfectly reasonable. The Iranian state media is saying that the IRGC has readied all of its underground missile depots. They are reporting that they are fully battle ready. How this unfolds depends on the U.S. response. Iraqi Shia militias under Iran's patronage are saying that they have launched their operations against the U.S. presence in Iraq. Iranian state media says none of their ballistic missiles were intercepted. They all hit targets. Iran is saying that if there is no retaliation from America, they will stop attacking. If America attacks, their response will be crushing and widespread. This is what Donald Trump is now sitting around discussing with his generals, who he, of course, said he would trust and take very seriously. Flotog says, David, do you foresee any of the presidential candidates supporting war with Iran? I don't. The J Raid says, I am a veteran combat infantryman, and I will be happy to defend the pro-war hawk position logically. Well defended. I am not seeing any logical defense so far. Yeah. Let me say thanks to Jeff Solomon, who just signed up for a membership at joinpacman.com, as well as Alex Davis. Thanks to both of you guys. Really appreciate your support. Joinpacman.com. Uh-oh, did we just freeze? Did I just freeze momentarily? My entire system just froze. That was really weird. Very strange. I did freeze. Oh, very weird. All good now, people are saying. Very good. Appreciate that. Muhammad Pope says, we've known for years that the establishment wants war with Iran, regardless of their actions. How can they get away with this? The same way they got away with the Iraq War #2, the same way they got away with Iraq War #1, the same way they got away with Vietnam, and on and on. Brendan Hazlitt says, wow, I've been tripping on mushrooms and I'm just finding out about this. What can Bernie Sanders do at this point if he were to win in 2020? You know, you seem to be tripping balls, so I'm just going to let you do your thing, my friend. I don't know how much I can say about your question. Raina Akri says, what is Hezbollah? Why attack Dubai and Hafia? Who attacked Dubai? I'm not sure I know exactly what you're referring to. Let's listen to this report from the Pentagon now. Take a listen.
Get some more information on what Defense Secretary Esper was doing this afternoon and this evening. Both he and General Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, were here in the Pentagon when the attack occurred, and then went to the White House to brief the president, and then came back, and they have had a number of meetings that the entire Joint Chiefs of Staff met with the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of Defense, and other officials in this building, made calls to all of the regional allies. Those would be the Arab countries in the region, and to all the traditional NATO allies of the U.S. to give them a briefing on what happened. And then, of course, there's the question that everybody wants an answer to: what will be the American response to this attack? And the answer to that was, I'm not going to forecast any response. So other than the whereabouts and the actions of the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, this backgrounder from a defense official did not really add anything to what we knew.
All right, David Martin at the Pentagon, thank you so much for that update.
Sure thing.
Let's bring back in Natalie Brand on Capitol Hill.
Let's listen another minute or two to this.
More information on lawmaker reaction.
Tanya, reaction is beginning to trickle in across the lawmakers still on the Capitol and speaking before cameras tonight. So let me read you some of what the House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Eliot Engel, Democrat of New York, said. He, of course, the first concern is with U.S. troops and prayers that there were no casualties. This is a very fluid situation. We don't know what lawmakers know at this point. But really, he said that we need to know more about a strategy. And there's a lot of concern that this could spiral out of control very, very quickly. This is something that Democratic lawmakers on the Hill have been calling for.
All right, nothing particularly newsworthy there, so let me continue to see what's on folks' minds as they send in super chats and Twitch Prime messages. Daniel Rivera says, is there any way the Iran relationship can be restored? Yes, but not by Donald Trump. It will be up to the next president. FT says, I wish they would send Trump there to catch some missiles with his big mouth. Interesting imagery for sure. Okay, I think that is it as far as super chats go. Let me say thanks to some folks who have been sending messages over on Twitch. If you are watching on Twitch, please make sure to follow. We are just a hair shy of 22,000 followers on Twitch. We are just a hair shy of 800,000 subscribers on YouTube. And I invite you to re-up your Twitch Prime subscription. Kiko73 says, thank you, David, with their Twitch Prime sub. Kepatiz has subscribed with Twitch Prime. Lukiva has subscribed for the second month in a row. Very much appreciate that. Minister just released a Twitter message. Can someone tell me which minister so I can pull that account up? If somebody tells me, I'm glad to get that up on screen for us. Do we know which minister that is? Or what the Twitter username is? Unclear. Iran foreign minister. Okay. Let's see if we can find out. I wish I knew their username. Iran foreign minister. Okay, I don't think that's it. Jay Zarif. Okay. Got it. 12 minutes ago. This is a statement from Iran. Iran took and conducted proportionate measures in self-defense under Article 51 of UN Charter, targeting base from which cowardly armed attack against our citizens and senior officials were launched. We do not seek escalation or war, but will defend ourselves against any aggression. So there's two ways to interpret this, okay? If we say that they are being honest and upfront, then this really could be it. The other interpretation is they know that Donald Trump will not be able to resist a further escalation. And so they can do what they call a response and then say, this is it, unless Trump does more, knowing that this is very likely to trigger Donald Trump to do more. So this tells us very little about what is likely to happen. Hopefully within the next few hours or maybe early tomorrow, we will know from Donald Trump what his plan is. Lady Loki says via Super Chat, broke. Also heard of Putin's travels, Trump performing on his behalf, manipulate markets and cryptocurrency markets, Ayatollah power, Iraq expulsion, destroy democracies, Russian promise kept. There's a lot there, my friend, and I'm not fully understanding all of it, but I appreciate the support very, very much. David R. says, no, David, one more. Does anyone really think this wouldn't happen or be the last response from Iran? I have a hard time imagining that Donald Trump will do nothing. Trump has tweeted, someone is saying. Let's see what Donald Trump has said. All is well. Missiles launched from Iran at 2 military bases located in Iraq. Assessment of casualties and damages taking place now. So far, so good. We have the most powerful and well-equipped military anywhere in the world by far. I will be making a statement tomorrow morning. This is like he woke up and had a nice email from his long-lost aunt. This does not seem like Donald Trump. Let's retweet this with a comment. This sounds very little like Donald Trump. He sounds like he woke up on the right side of the bed during vacation, not like a guy handling a potentially disastrous military escalation. That's a very strange tweet. It actually does sound like Trump is sleeping. Trump may already be sleeping, and someone else tweeted this. There's something very, very odd about that tweet. I'm having a hard time believing that. Let me thank a few other people. I want to say thanks to Stephanie Wagoner, who signed up at joinpacman.com. Very much appreciate that. Really appreciate the support. 20 great people have signed up tonight at joinpacman.com. We are all trying to figure out what is going on tonight. And a lot of questions coming in via Super Chat. DIY Till I Die says, mainstream media is really banging the drums here. Military-industrial complex stocks are going to skyrocket tomorrow. Jimmy Calhoun says, David, honestly, this is only about Trump. There's no 3D chess. He's clearly unstable. He knows war will distract from impeachment. Remember when he accused Obama of this type of thing? I absolutely do. Freddie Bernard, knowing the president's history of making irrational decisions, would it be reasonable to suggest that Trump will respond with a counterattack on Iran? If I had to bet, I would bet that Trump does attack. What are we watching here? It looks like we've gone on to something else. I would bet that Donald Trump does retaliate, but only by a slight majority. I think it's 55-45 that Trump retaliates, given what we've seen so far. Bardamus New Zealand says tax cuts, judges, and now a new war. But Trump is an outsider, am I right? And Trump is currently on his downer phase. No question about it. Jimmy 10 Pins says with his third month in a row Twitch Prime sub, David, in your opinion, who of all the Democratic candidates can most effectively deal with a conflict in Iran? I think all of the frontrunners on the Democratic side are question marks around foreign policy. Joe Biden has the most knowledge, but has the worst positions. Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, the other two frontrunners, have better positions, but I find them lacking in knowledge. And, I don't really think anybody else has a serious shot at this point in time. Bray T subscribed for 6 months on Twitch and says, hey, David, what do you think happens to Israel if the situation escalates? Maybe it's getting sucked up in the mess. That's a real threat for our ally. I think Israel is going to be okay. I think Israel's going to be okay in all of this. Calepsis says via Super Chat, as a Marine Corps veteran of 9 years service, if Trump orders us to attack Iranian cultural sites and civilians, we are required to disobey his unlawful order. Fellow service members, do your duty. An important message, and I hope you are right. Andy Rue says, just checked out Hannity, didn't know Oliver North was still a credible commentator. I suppose he does know a lot about Iran. I actually, in my notes for a story I'm doing tomorrow, I was writing about Oliver North and how it's incredible that he is still considered a serious person. Unbelievable. Sabrina asks, hey, David, this is crazy. What do you think motivated the attack? Well, the assassination of Qasem Soleimani motivated this attack, which is just a direct response. That's what it is. That's what we're dealing with here. Terry Fold says, McConnell just released the Trump trial plan. No witnesses. Were they waiting for this distraction? Would not be surprised whatsoever. Would not be surprised whatsoever, Terry. I will review that and maybe comment on that tomorrow. We will see. Let's see. We are seeing both criticisms of Israeli foreign policy in the chat, which is fine, but we are also starting to see anti-Semitism, which is not okay. And we're not going to allow the anti-Semitism. That I promise you, my friends, we are not going to allow it. Folks asking, what is this right here? What is this? This is website memberships. Okay, if you look above, see where it says joinpacman.com to become a member, save 66% with coupon 2020 now. That is what moves the bar. So like the last person to sign up was Stephanie Wagoner, and it went from 19 to 20. And that's I recommend people do that. Why not, right? It's a beautiful thing. Let's see if Donald Trump has sent any follow-up tweets. It seems pretty safe to say that this is likely to be the only tweet we see from him tonight. Let's see if there are any interesting responses.
We've decapitated the Iraqi army. So now Iran is just waiting. They're just waiting. And at some point, there's no question, as sure as you're sitting here, unless something else happens first, like somebody wanting to get elected, and the only way he's going to do it is to start a war with Iran. Because I tell you what, if Iran isn't negotiating now, they got to be crazy, because they are sitting, and I said this the other day, they are sitting on hot timber. They are really crazy if they're not negotiating. And by the way, they do, in my opinion, want to negotiate. But we may have somebody that wants to have war because he doesn't want to accept a negotiation, which could turn out to be much stronger than war, and you could make a much better deal than war. But it may be good politics. I predict there's a very good chance that we'll end up in a war with Iran, because I think it's politically possibly a positive for Obama, even though it's not a good thing for our country. And you're also talking about, let's say, look.
Very, very relevant today. A whole bunch of super chats coming in that I want to get to. Lars Morton Thu says, have a look at Dr. Saeed Jalil at Twitter, a representative of the Iranian government, posted a mirror of Trump's tweet after the attacks. What has come of this world? Let's take a look. Yeah, so I'm not really able to read this is the only thing. So I think we're going to go back to Trump's Twitter. Octos Alias says, Washington Examiner says, Iran says if the U.S. responds, they will strike Dubai, Haifa. Shit will get very real then. Shit will get very, very real then. Nopity Nope says, sounds like Trump was talked out of an aggressive response and now he has to act as if nothing bad has happened to not seem weak when he backs down. That may be exactly what's going on when he says all is well. That you may be exactly right. Erythropathac says, El Perón Taqueria more reliable than Anna's Taqueria. I don't know El Perón Taqueria, and I've only been to Anna's once, so I unfortunately am unable to say. Casual Thursday says, hey, David, would you consider the assassination of Soleimani an impeachable offense? In a vacuum, I would. In modern American politics, I would not. David R. says, David, my younger brother is playing Switch in the next room and says the recent attack probably won't change anyone's opinion on Trump one way or the other. He's voting for primary, by the way, for Bernie in the primary. Yeah, there's a very good chance that this doesn't do anything one way or the other in terms of Trump's reelection. I think that's a perfectly reasonable possibility. Sabrina says, I meant to ask what motivated the attack on General Soleimani in the first place? The things I don't know after taking a break from U.S. news. Oh, well, the Trump administration is claiming both that the attack on Soleimani was because he posed an imminent threat and because of past things that he did. They're kind of giving conflicting explanations, and we'll cover that on the show tomorrow. I already have copious notes about it. Kyle Knitter says, I appreciate all that you do, Kyle Kolinsky. Wrong channel, my friend. This is the David Pakman Show. I appreciate that, though. If you're just joining us, we're trying to figure out if we are going to war with Iran. If you're just joining us over on YouTube, please absolutely destroy that subscribe button. We are closing in on 800,000 subscribers, and I would really appreciate if you hit subscribe. It's free. Much like us banning people is free. It costs us nothing. Hitting subscribe is free, and I would appreciate that. If you're watching over on Twitch, please do follow. I'm only 23 followers away from 22,000 on Twitch, and I would appreciate folks getting us closer to that. And to the extent that these platforms continue to be good for us, we will keep streaming on them. Very, very much appreciated. Welcome to John Baker and Sarah Clark, who signed up at joinpacman.com. Really appreciate your support. And that is 22 new members this evening. Very much appreciated. Thank you so much. Super chats starting to flow in very, very rapidly. Hardchit Batoya says, you think if there's a lot of casualties, there will be more pressure to respond? I think there will be no casualties from what Iran has done. It seems to have been, the evacuations seem to have taken place. I would be surprised if there were casualties. Chris Prawl says, you've taught at BC and you've never had, El Pelón. I thought El Perón. I thought maybe it was a joke because I'm Argentinian. I have been to El Pelón, but I don't remember when or anything about it. I wish I did. Trevor Warfield says, we wouldn't be in this mess if Trump hadn't backed out of the Iran nuclear deal. Yes, that's true. That is absolutely true. Erythropathac says, what's the best place to get gelatos in Boston? I don't think I've ever gotten gelato in Boston, so I don't know, Erythro. Yes, I couldn't really tell you. Thanks to Sundiver for subscribing with Twitch Prime. Thanks to Sam Zeldin for subscribing for 6 months on Twitch. Thanks to Fun Crusher as well. I love seeing that our moderator, Daniel, is banning people on YouTube because people are being absolutely toxic. Thank you very much. Daniel is on fire. The ban hammer is free, and we will not hesitate to use it. Tony Calderon has subscribed at joinpacman.com, as has Tucker Jones. Thanks to both of you guys. Very much appreciate it. So it seems in all likelihood that we are not going to hear from Donald Trump again tonight. Based on what he said, I don't believe that we are going to be seeing a retaliatory attack tonight. So on that note, I am going to cut this very unexpected last-minute stream, and we will have a full show and potentially more streams tomorrow. So thanks to joining me last minute here. That does it for today. I would not expect more action tonight.